Welcome to Sinkowitz, hosted by the fearless Linda Sinkowitz. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to Sinkowitz. My name is Linda Sinkowitz, and this is our episode 19. So thank you to everybody who watches our program. We greatly appreciate it. So this week, my guest is going to be from Hawaii, and then we're going to go to Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Michigan, Missouri, New York. Then we're going to go to our national notes. Then we'll go to our vote notes. And then we'll have our trivia. So right now, let's just get right to it and welcome Ralph Cushnie from Hawaii. Aloha.
Hi. Welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. And you have been fighting the fight for a while. So you are an election official in Hawaii. Now, are you on the Big Island where you live, or?
I'm on the island of Kauai.
On one of the other, on Kauai. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So why don't you give us a background on what you have been doing in Hawaii?
So I got involved in 2022 and figured out that after the 2020 election, so this is in 2022, that there were inserted ballots in the 2020 election. And I found out that the way they did audits was using the ballot images. So they were not able to detect that they had more ballots than they had envelopes collected. And I've been speaking about this for quite some time and trying to get some action on it. I got appointed to the Hawaii State Elections Commission in January of 2024. And because I had been vocal before, the first thing they did when they swore me in my meeting is they told me I had to recuse myself because I brought evidence that the counties and the state weren't keeping chain of custody documentation. And that's the job of the Elections Commission, is to bring these issues up. And so the first thing they did on that meeting, the Deputy Attorney General got on the meeting, said I had to recuse myself. And when I went to defend myself, this guy happened to be the defense attorney for the chief elections officer and was advising the Elections Commission on how to hear testimony from the public when the public was asking the commission to investigate the chief elections officer. So he was representing opposing side, clear conflict of interest.
Wow.
And in that meeting, you can find it online, but they told me I had to recuse myself. They muted my microphone, and it's been a battle ever since then. And that was the first couple minutes in my first Elections Commission meeting as a commissioner.
Wow. And we should let people know that Hawaii does not have a Secretary of State. It is your lieutenant governor that's in charge, but they have appointed an election official for Hawaii.
We have a chief elections officer, CEO of elections, and the Elections Commission is supposed to be the oversight, but they have a lot of rings of defense around them, including the Attorney General's office, who both represents them and represents the commission. And wow. They actively block any measure to get transparency. So culminating, I figured out that in the 2024 election that they were inserting ballots electronically without a paper trail. And in our December's meeting, they were trying to rescind asking the counties for their chain of custody documentation. So the chair had put on the agenda to rescind asking the counties for their chain of custody documentation. And the way that works is the agenda item is the agenda item. And he was specifically asking to rescind it. And I made a motion to subpoena chain of custody documentation. He freaked out. They stopped the meeting. They turned off the cameras, and they had law enforcement remove me from the building for making
Oh my God.
So that's what we're up against. And so it's been very
Wow.
interesting. So since then, we've been getting timelines together, and we've been getting our information together, which we can clearly show that they're inserting ballots electronically into this statewide voter registration system without any paper records. And if we go to the slides, I can kind of show you. So this is the slides for the Big Island of Hawaii, and across the top is the collection drop box locations. And then USPS 1, 2, and 3, they made up to 3 drops in a day. And then in the green is the total of the drop boxes and the USPS collections. And if you go down, if you follow that total down to the bottom there, they collected a total of 57,553 ballots. I believe that's what it says. And then that's what they collected. If you go to the state summary report, so that would be the next slide, their total turnout, male turnout, was 76,595. So they cannot account for where 19,042 ballots came from. And now this does not include however many envelopes were could not pass signature verification. And I can show the guests how I got this information. And basically through the Freedom of Information Act in Hawaii, they call it a UIPA. So if you could go to the next slide there. So this is what I requested from the county. And basically there's they send me all of their summary data. And if you look on the rear slide there, basically they document going to each drop box, and then they document double checking the numbers from the drop boxes. And they have the name of the person that did that, the time and the date, and how many ballots they collected. And that is backed up by a handwritten form. So this is all auditable and what we would expect to see. Go to the next slide, please. And then this, we also FOIA'd the business reply mail receipts. And this is for one specific day. And in this day, there was 90 pieces delivered. This was on the election day, 11/5. And so we have all the receipts for every day. And they had up to 3 deliveries in one single day. Okay, next slide. So we figured out that there was a 19,042 ballot count discrepancy, but this wasn't until January. So it was past the deadline to submit the election challenge. And what this letter here is a candidate, Ms. Ho, had written to the county and asked about this discrepancy and said, here's the records of your collections. And again, the Big Island did not flag that they could not account for 19,000 ballots. And the Office of Elections did not ask for their reports on this. It's obvious because they wouldn't have been able to certify the election had they done that. But in this dialogue, the head of elections, the elections program administrator for the Big Island, is replying to Ms. Ho and saying basically the BRM receipts you reviewed were provided to us by the USPS. The USPS doesn't always provide us with receipts, which is the difference in the envelope count you inquired about. So basically they're saying that they can account for all of the ballots that they received. And then we asked for those records and to prove their what they said in that email, and they can't do it. They don't have any record of where those ballots came from.
Right. So what you're saying about this is that they give you the receipt for some ballots on that particular day that you showed, the 90 ballots, and then they're telling you, well, we don't always get receipts.
Correct. So they had,
wow.
They had
okay.
about 29,000 receipts for mail-in ballots. and they're saying they're missing 19,000. So that's a $13,000 check to the post office that's due. So you could have violations, but we're just trying to get traction in the Elections Commission to share with the rest of the commissioners that there's an issue here. The commission is a 9-body panel. We have 5 people on that body that pretty much vote no to look into anything. And just in the last 2 meetings, we made some progress, and we were able to get several investigative groups together. I'm on one right now, and we're writing a report on how our elections were run and what the discrepancies are.
All right. So the election officials, you have 9. Is it 5-4, 5 Democrats, 4 Republicans, or what is the makeup?
It's 4 and 4, and then they vote in 1. So the chair is supposedly a Republican, but he votes no on most things to get any kind of transparency. I have FOIA'd the communications with the chair in the Office of Elections, who we oversee.
Yep.
And it's clear that the chair is actively working with the chief elections officer, the deputy attorney general, and the staff on the Office of Elections to bury and hide the complaints that people are bringing to the commission. And you can see it in their email chains. They're redacting their communications, and the communications are between the chair, the staff of the Office of Elections, the chief elections officer, and the deputy attorney general representing the commission. And then they say that they're asserting attorney-client privilege, but the client is the Elections Commission, and the Elections Commission has not asserted attorney-client privilege. And so I've sent FOIAs out to find out who's asserting the privilege, but they're not answering me. So most of my Freedom of Information Acts, they ignore, and then I have to write appeals, and then it takes a lot of time and effort to get answers to very simple things.
You know, there's stall tactics there. Now, to become an election official, are you on the ballot to get elected, or does somebody appoint you?
Appointed. So we're there's 4 commissioners appointed by the minority leaders in the House and in the Senate. So I was appointed, and so on Kauai, I filed the same thing. They had more ballots counted than they had envelopes collected. And I've been asking for, in the 24 election, I was asking on before, during, and after the election for the chain of custody documentation. The election was on November 5th. They did not give me chain of custody documentation until November 21st. The chief elections officer put out his last report on November 16th, so 5 days before they gave me chain of custody documentation. That chain of custody documentation showed that there were 4,000 missing envelopes. Now, that gave me the weekend to file a court case to the Hawaii State Supreme Court. And when I filed my case on November 25th, that same day, the chief elections officer certified the election. The next response or timeline that we have is on December 2nd, the county council, the clerk on the county of Kauai, wrote certificates of election for the county council. That race was decided by 108 votes, and they could not account for 4,000 envelopes. So then on December 4th, in a motion to dismiss, the county of Kauai revised and falsified their information 9 days after the election was certified to the Supreme Court. And they changed all of their collections data. It was 30 days after their last entry was made, 9 days after the election was certified. And I can prove on certain dates with the mail receipts that they added literally over 1,000 envelopes to their count. But their revised count to the court still showed that they could not account for 661 envelopes.
And this isn't rocket science. I mean, you have a ballot and you have an envelope. It should be coming from a person, and it goes from point A to point B, but not in Hawaii.
Well, you would think it's that simple. And
Yeah.
in the meetings, they constantly mute my microphone. The chair speaks over me. The last two meetings, I was finally able to speak without being interrupted, which was a huge change. And we got our points across. And then the commission voted to have investigative groups, which basically the first group came out with a report on Kauai. And their determination is that the election results are not verifiable and they're not cross-checked with the chain of custody. All of the electronic records that they rely on, nobody's allowed to witness. So we just get a one-page printout of the results is basically the only reporting that we get, and nobody has verified any of the entries that they've made.
Wow. I'll tell you, I don't know whether I would be able to handle someone muting my microphone for a long period of time. I'm glad they're actually letting you speak now, but it's because of your persistence. And, we're behind you 100% in what you're doing and pushing this forward. You are getting the attention of some national people already, which is great. But we want you to keep doing what you're doing and not let them get away with it. Now, is there any way that you can go after them for violating your right to free speech as an election official and being muted? Have you looked into that?
Well, all of these things take time and money. I'm sure there would be. I don't have a lawyer representing me. I asked a lawyer about getting just simple information that the state's withholding. And basically I was told that, for put down a 10 grand retainer and they should be able to get me the answer to one specific question for $40,000. So yeah. That's pretty much cost prohibitive to go after these things. But I'm starting to do a social media campaign.
Excellent.
I have an Instagram account now. It's Ralph Cushnie, Elections Commissioner. And I'm just letting the public know.
Can they donate to you? Can people donate?
I'm not taking any donations. I am not set up to do that.
Okay. Would you want a plea put out there for an attorney that would help you out for free?
That would be great. I would welcome that assistance.
Yes, you want to make sure people know that you need the help. You're doing a phenomenal job with everything you're working on, and with all the pushback that you've been getting, it's incredible. And even just the slides you showed us with those missing ballots. I mean, hello, people, there's a problem here. And we know, just like in Connecticut, they just want to sweep everything under the rug. No, there's nothing to see here. And, it's just unbelievable. But I think now with this new administration wanting to make sure the voter rolls are accurate, that HAVA and the NVRA are followed, it may take a little bit of time, but we are absolutely going to see a big, big difference. And I would put Hawaii up there. That really needs to get some help from the federal government. So in our closing with your interview, is there anything else you wanted to let the people know?
Basically we need federal help at this point. The state will not investigate itself, and the Attorney General's office is in on actively suppressing any questioning of the election system. So, and I welcome any help, but I'm not taking any donations or cash or anything.
Okay, but if an attorney out there wants to help you, you are more than willing to take their free help.
I need lots of help on that. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ralph, for coming on. It's been Ralph Cushnie has been our guest here on Sinkowitz. And thank you so much. We really appreciate your coming on. And we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
We just heard from Ralph Cushnie from Hawaii and all the stuff that he has been working on. I'll tell you, I definitely myself would have been extremely vocal and with everything that he's working on, but he's making some headway. He is definitely making some headway. So now let's go to our first state of this episode, and it is Alabama. Alabama. This is from the Alabama Reflector from July 24th. Alabama bill would create procedures to replace faithless presidential electors. So Senator Sam Given, he's a Republican from Huntsville. He's the sponsor of SB 11, whose purpose is to fill a gap in the appointing of electors. The bill was written by the Uniform Law Commission, and Alabama awards the 9 electoral votes to the candidate with the most votes. Now, the bill would require political parties to nominate an elector and an alternate. Electors would have to sign a pledge to mark their official ballots for the candidate of the party for which they pledge. And an elector who broke that pledge would vacate their position and be replaced by the alternate. So I guess their law is just kind of tweaking it. So all 9 of Alabama's electoral votes have to agree with what the majority of the people in Alabama had voted for. So they're just fixing that law right now. All right, so now we're going to Arizona. This is from 91.5 KJZZ in Phoenix from July 30th, and the Tucson Sentinel from July 26th. Some Tucson voters may have received incorrect ballots in the city council primary. Where have we heard this before? Oh, incorrect stuff going out. Oh, that was right. That was in Arizona. So this time it's Pima County. And the Pima County's recorder office says they may have assigned incorrect party ballots in the Tucson City Council primary elections in Ward 3, 5, and 6. Now, the recorder's office blames the mishap on complications connected to an overlap of concurring elections, which include their congressional primary and the city of South Tucson special recall. That's right, blame somebody else for the issues. As many as 1,294 voters would be affected, and voters concerned about their ballot should call the city clerk's office, and that phone number is area code 520-791-3221. And they're trying to sort out the way to fix the issue. But they, at the time I wrote this up or got this information, they're waiting on the comments from the legal department. Okay, and just so you know, Pima County is one of the counties in Arizona. There's 15 counties in Arizona, and I know Pima County, they have their own voter information stuff separate from Arizona State, as well as Maricopa County. So now we're going to go on to Florida, the Sunshine State. This source is from ABC News on July 22nd, and they said, Miami can't postpone its elections to next year. Now, if you'll remember, we've had this information out there that the council members in Miami decided, we're not going to have the election this fall. We're going to postpone it another year, which then meant they would retain their positions for a year, including the mayor. Just because. Anyway, the ruling comes after the Miami City Council voted 3-2 and the Miami Mayor Francis Suarez to postpone elections for the year. Miami-Dade County Circuit Judge Valerie Armano Schur ruled in favor of the mayoral candidate Emilio Gonzalez, and he's the one who had filed the lawsuit saying that the city didn't have the authority to shift elections without voter approval. Well, the city of Miami would have to amend their charter, according to the judge, which requires electoral approval. So DeSantis, their governor, says this is absolutely fantastic. This is what needed to be done, follow the law, etc. But I got to tell you, this same story was also mentioned in the Economic Times from July 21st, 2025, which had, when I read it, it had an incredibly misleading title. Now, same story, what I just told you, which is a good thing. You can't just postpone elections, willy-nilly. You actually have to follow the law. Now, this Economic Times, their headline was, quote, "Big blow to Donald Trump's Republican Party as Florida judge rules election can't be delayed a year." So I read through their article, which did have some of the same information as the one I just read you, but it had nothing to do with Trump's Republicans. This is the type of stuff that we still see in the media. They're just not getting it. They are just trying to throw things out there that are absolutely false. And anytime I come across them, I'm going to let you know, because it's not right. We need to have information that's accurate. Not because, you want to go cry in a corner because the judge said, no, you can't violate the law. All right, so now we're going to go on to Michigan. The Michigan House lawsuit against Jocelyn Benson moves to mediation. So the Michigan House and the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, headed to mediation after failing to comply with House subpoena for election materials, specifically those related to election training. Now, Jocelyn Benson is also running for governor. Remember, she's the one we told you about that violated the campaign finance thing by actually announcing her running in the state capitol, which was a violation. But nobody could do anything unless she turned herself in. Crazy. So now she's refusing to give the rest of the information that the House had requested with a subpoena. So with this information, she refused, saying that it contains sensitive information that could be used to interfere with the chain of ballot custody, tamper with election equipment, or impersonate a clerk on election day. What? I mean, I saw this last one with impersonating a clerk. That's why you're not going to give the information the House has asked on your training? Everybody should know what the training is. It should be public information. It shouldn't be secret. We want free and fair elections. So don't hide the fact on what you are training your election officials or poll workers to do. So she's refusing to give it over. And the House Oversight Chair, State Representative Jay DeBoyer, called the mediation order at least a good step toward achieving the transparency we have been tirelessly wanting to bring to Michigan. Wow. And she's running for governor. So she's not going to turn over documents on their training. I'm sure if she made it as governor, there's a lot of other things that we may want to see as citizens that, no, can't do it. All right, so now we're going to go on to Missouri. Missouri, this source is from the Gateway Pundit from July 31st. Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey secures felony indictment against St. Louis County Executive Sam Page for stealing by deceit and election fraud. So the Missouri Attorney General Bailey announced that a grand jury returned a true bill against Democratic County Executive Sam Page, accusing him of abusing tax dollars and deceiving his own county. Page is facing the following charges: 2 Class 4 election offenses for unlawfully using public funds, to oppose a ballot measure during the 2025 election cycle and influencing public opinion and in order to defeat a ballot measure. One count of felony theft, which is $25,000 or more, related to the misappropriation of over $25,000 in postage. One count of felony theft of $750 or more, where he allegedly stole at least $750 in county funds through deceitful means, once again pushing illegal expenditures through false representations. So if convicted, Page could face up to 13 years in prison and fines reaching $24,000. And of course, Page's attorney, Jeff Jensen, said they adamantly deny these charges. But I got to tell you, this is not the first time with issues with Sam Page. In 2021, with the masks mandate issue, he said everybody had to wear their masks, even though they were told they don't have to wear their masks. And then he was caught at a hockey game a week later without a mask on. So anyway, so that's what's going on in Missouri. Now we're going to go to New York. New York. The source is the New York Times from July 25th. Election officials allege possible voter fraud in Republican primary. New York City Board of Elections has asked prosecutors to investigate possible ballot stuffing and votes being cast by dead people in a hotly contested city council race in southern Brooklyn. One of the dead voters would be 107. The other would be 101. Plus, there were 22 votes that weren't scanned that just turned up. And one of them was from a man who hadn't voted in years, and he affirmed he didn't vote, but somebody voted for him. So these 22 ballots were not counted. And Mr. Brannon, he's a Democrat, is the existing council member whose seat is up for grabs because of term limits. And he accuses the county Republican Party of the crime to benefit their boss. Wow. Okay. We'll see how that one turns out. Oh, and they did count the dead people's votes, by the way, because they couldn't pull them back because they don't know which ballots were actually submitted on behalf of the dead people. So those two dead people, they did vote. Their voice was heard from the grave. All right, we are going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to be right back. Thank you for watching Sinkowitz, and I'll see you in a minute. Hi, and welcome back to Sinkowitz. My name's Linda Sinkowitz, and you're watching us on OBBM Network TV. So thank you, everybody. So now we're going to go to our national information, and this source is the Orange County Registrar on July 29th, 2025. The Orange County election chief says he followed the law with federal requests for non-citizen information. The Department of Justice sued Orange County Registrar of Voters, Bob Page, no relation to that last one, I don't think, for not providing full records of the request on June 2nd. They were documents from January of 2020 that showed a number of voter registration records in Orange County that had been canceled because the registrant did not meet citizenship requirements, and more information about cancellation, including copies of the application, voting history, and related correspondence sent or received by county registrars related to the registration. Now, Page responded, but redacted some information. And Department of Justice Deputy U.S. Attorney General Michael Gates, when he was the Huntington Beach City Attorney, questioned an absentee ballot for a dog. And believe it or not, it's still under investigation, as well as the other non-citizens. And that's not the first time I've heard dogs being registered. A few years ago, I had gotten a phone call at my organization, Fight Voter Fraud, that somebody had their Doberman Pinschers registered, and it was in the central United States. And I actually called the registrar of voters, and she wasn't surprised. She said that happens frequently in their county. Unbelievable. So anyway, our vote notes for this week is Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas to Greer to investigate Jack Smith for election interference. Now you're going to be able to get the link on our website and go to that link and you can read his letter that he sent. I thought it was something of importance. So thank you, Senator Tom Cotton, for putting that letter out there. Now we're going to go to our trivia question. So our trivia question for the week is, why is a Republican state called a red state and Democrat state called a blue state? Well, it's a very recent phenomenon. Actually, it is due to the televised election night coverage, and they needed to color code the Electoral College for the maps. For most of their history, the parties didn't even have any colors. So that's how that was actually added in. It was because graphs on TV to show the difference between the Republicans, which are red, and the Democrats, which are blue. So some of my final thoughts from this week. As we know, the Department of Justice is sending out letters to multiple states, asking them to comply with giving them information that they are requesting, because they're looking into, this is the Civil Rights Division, they're looking into states that potentially have violated HAVA, which is the Help America Vote Act, and the NVRA, which is the National Voter Registration Act, which is basically making sure you only have U.S. citizens on the voter rolls, that people who haven't voted in 2 consecutive elections are actually on the inactive list or on the off list once they've been canvassed, and to make sure that their numbers are accurate, the certification of the votes, which we also know here in Connecticut, there is no way our certification was even close to what the numbers that were actually submitted. And we know that because we actually purchased the voter rolls. It's $300 in Connecticut to purchase the voter rolls. And we purchased them just before the end of the year, got them from December 18th. Mind you, the numbers were certified in November, and then they had to be with Congress by the 17th in order to have the congressional certification. And we found that 26% of the votes were not in. They weren't under the towns. We know exactly which towns they were. So one of the things I keep questioning is, how can states certify the votes if not all the information is in there? Just like Ralph Cushnie, our guest earlier in the program. How can you certify when they were missing 19,000 ballots on where they came from? Nobody knows. Numbers are off. They looked at them for Hawaii, and I think it was on Kauai. There's still over 600 on that one. There was 4,000 for Kauai. We need to make sure everything is accurate. And the states that are pushing back at the Department of Justice, I am really hoping that they have their money taken away from them for elections. Maybe they'll comply when they find out they're not going to be getting a ton of money to run the elections. They're supposed to run them legally and do what's supposed to be done, follow the law. And they're not. And now Michigan last week basically told the Department of Justice to go pound sand, that they weren't going to comply. So we'll see what happens with that one. I think it was it Wisconsin that told them, yeah, if you give us $12,500 for the voter rolls, we'll give you the information. This is the federal government. And we want to make sure that our elections are free and fair. So we'll be keeping an eye on the number of states that are complying and the number of states that are not complying. And we all know what color states are not complying. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching Sinkowitz. My name is Linda Sinkowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. You can actually go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org. And if you want some free information on people who are potentially double voted in your state, fill out the form and we will send you our analysis of the people that we have evidence on have potentially voted more than once, diluted your vote, and it's free. We'd love if people would actually donate to us, but that's one of the services that we are giving out free to the public, and we're very happy that we're doing that. So with our program, hopefully we have been able to educate you on a number of different things election-wise that are going on across the country. A lot of times people think because this is not a major election year that nothing is being done. Well, lots and lots of things are being done right now in order to get ready for the 2026 midterms. And now is when we need to be working on them. So again, thank you so much for watching Sinkowitz on OBBM Network TV. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.